Hey everyone, it's Cassimus Lego, and welcome to another custom Lego minifigure review video, and this time, I'm going to be showing you 3 brand new minifigures from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. For the 4th project in the custom Lego Harry Potter minifigure series, I've made for the first time He Who Shall Not Be Named, the Dark Lord Voldemort in his resurrected form, Barty Crouch Jr. disguised as the famous Auror, Alistair Mad-Eye Moody, and the Hogwarts Triwizard champion Cedric Diggory. This project features a small but really effective selection of characters that, in my opinion, perfectly represent the 4th entry in the Harry Potter series. I finished up these 3 just recently, and I've done a lot of cool new things this time around, so I'm really excited to show you what I've come up with. So let's go ahead and get a close-up look at each of these custom Lego minifigures. Let's first take a look at the well-respected Auror, Alistair Mad-Eye Moody. I felt that this character was well deserved to be made in this project, even if this particular version isn't actually who he claims to be. And that said, I'm pretty pleased with how he turned out. I don't want to waste any time, so I want to begin right away with the most noticeable piece of this figure, that being the coat. Like usual, it's just a brown painted fabric cloak, but I did some fun things to it, including folding the edges to form the lapels. I added the collar as a large piece of fabric, and I even added the buckles that hang out from the inside. I outlined the edges in lighter brown, while the buckles are painted on a piece of E-tape that I attached. The pockets also have gold detailing in the form of the button snaps, which, speaking of buttons, I've painted a series of buttons alongside the edges of the coat, though I left out giving them any additional details such as an outline. Turning to the back, the coat is mostly empty, aside from the pair of 2 3D pieces that are glued on either side. Here you can really see how the collar wraps around the coat, and even though there's some warping going on due to the hairpiece being forced onto the head, I still really love how it looks. With the coat out of the way, I'm going to circle back down to the legs. As you can see, Moody's right leg is as standard as legs get, but his left leg is custom, depicting his metallic prosthetic leg as seen in the film. It's a combination of a standard Lego leg, a Lego skeleton leg, and a Lego 1x1 tile. I simply chopped off the lower half of the leg and the foot of the skeleton leg, and then I glued them together, topping it off with the 1x1 so he can still attach to Lego plates. For me, it's always a challenge to match the height of the legs when modifying one of them, but thankfully, I think I pulled it off for Moody here. Both the standard leg and the upper half of the modified leg have some basic wrinkles painted against a layer of black paint. The shoes are a little bit different too. While they share the same appearance, they are both picked out in different pairs of colors. I think it's super awesome how the coat almost hides the prosthetic leg. It's kind of chilling, which is perfect for the character. The torso has a sculpted jacket. I tried to make one from E-tape and some other kind of vinyl material, but after a few tries, I went ahead and sculpted it, just because I wanted the flaps to stick out, which turned out to be the best choice. Now beyond that, there's a lot happening on the jacket. For one, it has many pockets, straps, and buckles, a zipper, and just a general leather-like texture that I wanted to capture, which I think I've done a good job on. The pockets are sculpted and outlined in light gray, which pops out nicely. The 3 straps with the golden buckles turned out a little bit smaller than I would have liked, not to mention they aren't totally in the right place, but they certainly do their job. And the zipper turned out great too. I also added various light gray lines to help visually describe the texture of a leather jacket. Underneath it, there's just barely a suggestion of a shirt that I painted in. That's in brown, and the design has its own highlighted lines and even some buttons. The arms are nothing special, though I did go ahead and add some custom tops and painted gold button snaps, just like I had done on the fabric coat pockets. Now immediately upon starting this project, I knew right away that I was going to be using the newer head print Lego released in 2022 as opposed to the original from 2018. I just love how well the gritty and squinting facial expression matches Brendan Gleeson. The only modification I did was add his magical eye and its respective straps as 3D elements, which I tell you, cutting out the exact length I needed so the hair wouldn't damage it when I put it on was really tricky. I kept slowly removing pieces and repainting the areas where I had previously failed, and it was pretty tedious, but eventually I got it with no problem. The eye though was pretty straightforward. It's just a sculpted semi-sphere with the eye painted in. I wasn't sure how the outlining was going to look, but I personally think it looks perfect. The hairpiece is just the standard Lego hairpiece introduced with this character in fact, so it seemed only fair to include it in my custom Lego minifigure. Besides painting it in my own blonde color, no additional modifications were made. Of course, Alistair Moody wouldn't be complete without some key accessories. I've given him his specially designed walking stick, which was made very similarly to Bilbo Baggins' staff, but slightly more complicated. It began as a standard LEGO rod element to which I applied the usual things like slice off random bits to resemble a wooden stick-like texture. But anyway, I sculpted the animal head at the top and the wrapping horns. Then after giving it a base of dark brown paint, I then dry brushed the entire piece in lighter colors, as well as giving it a black wash to fill in the cracks and crevices, again to resemble the wooden-like texture. When all was said and done, I think it came out very well. I also have Moody's wand, which as you can see, I actually painted a unique design for. This marks the first time in my LEGO Harry Potter custom minifigure series that I'm painting the designs onto each respective character's wands. The other two characters have their own wands, and in Moody's case, it was a fairly simple design. Essentially just a dark brown base with two silver lines that wrap around the circumference, which by the way was extremely annoying. Painting lines around a curved surface is definitely one of my least favorite things to do. Either way, I'm glad to have painted this custom LEGO wand for Moody, and given the complexity of the designs, I can't wait to paint even more for future minifigures. But with the two accessories taken a look at, that's everything for Alistair Moody, otherwise known as Mad Eye. Of course, just a disguised Barty Crouch Jr., but another great minifigure to add to the collection. Next up is the Triwizard champion from House Hufflepuff, Cedric Diggory, who was tragically killed during the events of the tournament. Like Moody, I knew that I was 100% bound to select this character to make it as a custom LEGO minifigure, making it the first Hufflepuff minifigure that I've made. To me, that was fairly obvious, but what wasn't was selecting the outfit for him. Now, I have him in the third task attire, but this wasn't initially the appearance I was going to base the minifigure on, and in fact, I've made two separate versions of the character. My first choice was making Cedric in his Hufflepuff school robes with a brand new fabric pattern and techniques. And I completed that figure a few weeks back, but then I got the idea for a really cool side project using the figure. I'm really excited to get to work on those figures, but for now, I've decided to shelve the original Cedric that I've made. So, in a short amount of time, I went ahead and whipped up the version that you see, sporting the third task outfit, and to cut myself some slack, I used the original torso from the LEGO Harry Potter Series 1 collectible minifigures line, with no modifications. Additionally, I've done nothing to this head print that LEGO has used across various lines, including Cedric Diggory himself. It's a passable likeness to Robert Pattinson, though I may update it later on. In addition, I've given him a custom hairpiece from FireStar Toys. Recently, I've been in love with their growing selection of molds and unique pieces, so I've gone ahead and give Cedric one of them, which captures his hairstyle perfectly. So basically, this figure is mostly purist. However, the legs are completely custom, and they show off a new painted design that I'm really fond of. This depicts some fly details, pockets, and some wrinkles. I like this design so much that I'll go ahead and say that whenever I get the chance, I'll probably go ahead and include this on future figures. Specifically for Cedric, I've painted the athletic yellow stripes on either side of the figure and even tried to capture as much of the shoe details as possible. In terms of complexity, there isn't much to go over for Cedric Diggory himself, but for the minifigure, I've made some pretty intense accessories. First of which is his wand with his own painted design. Painting them as thin and clean as possible, I've picked out the different symbols in dark brown against the lighter brown that I painted on to match the base color of the LEGO element, and I think it came out really nicely. I did notice in my references that those circles have some lines running across them, almost like a sliced pizza pie, but for simplicity's sake, I left them off. Beyond the painted designs, this wand accessory is pretty simple. The other accessory I've made, however, is anything but, and was a real challenge to make. Diggory is proudly holding the portkey Bewitched to appear as the Triwizard Cup. This thing is so complex that it deserves its own entire segment. I really wanted to make this given its importance to not only the entire story, but also the fate of the character. But how to approach it, I didn't have a clue. I began this process by thinking about what my options were for the base. I couldn't find any props or scaled replicas from other artisan makers and third-party figure companies, so it seemed that if I wanted to make it, I was going to have to form it myself. So I took a large LEGO trophy element and got to work trimming it down. I had to remove the two figure clips and the large oval that protruded from the sides and the front respectively, and then basically sand everything else down. When I had gotten it smooth enough, I started painting the 6 blue glass-like faces of the cup itself, beginning of course with the white outlines and weaving everything around them, including the silver decorations, shiny effects, and the bright white Triwizard lettering. The additional silver and those very small white diamond details, along with the dragon-like handles, were sculpted, which made for a very tedious process. Specifically, cutting out all of the diamond shapes was not easy, nor were they fun to individually apply. But in the hand of the Hufflepuff champion, I think the work was well worth it. It looks just as magical as it should be. So yes, that was Cedric Diggory and his awesome Triwizard Cup. Just don't let him know that it's actually a portkey. Otherwise, he'll be met with a terrible fate. Oh dear. Last but not least, I'm finally adding to my collection a LEGO custom minifigure of He Who Shall Not Be Named, Lord Voldemort, in his resurrected form. Because I've decided to make these figures in a relatively chronological fashion, I really had no reason to make Voldemort prior to year 4. Unless of course you count the teenage Tom Riddle that I've done. But now that I've reached the Goblet of Fire, marking his return in the series, it was definitely time to go for the custom minifigure treatment. And going about this figure was actually much simpler than I expected. I made a prototype of this figure about a month ago that featured fully base black fabric for the robes and details. It was primarily a test run, as I wanted to do something different in Voldemort's construction. I knew I wanted to do something grand for his robes, and I just spent my time playing around with the different pieces. Eventually, I had a pretty good idea of how to approach the character, and I got to work on the second version, which used the same base fabric ideas, and also a better emphasis on picking out details in the robes. So obviously, the robes on the figure are not painted or removable. It is in fact glued onto the torso, which I had to prepare beforehand. I painted basic robe detail that includes a few wrinkles, though obscured by this 3D fabric piece and the seam lines near the white skin tone. The legs have a very simple fabric piece for the waist, and it's not removable either. It's not constructed like the traditional waistcoats that I've done before, and I've just painted the gray outline to help it stand out. As I bet you noticed, I also just gave him standard white Lego legs. The fabric robes go over the torso and legs and look really great in my opinion, but they have no dimension. That's where the edges that I've done come in, and once again, featuring a new technique. Basically, it's not possible for me to paint the base black fabric that I've used, so instead, I made these two 3D pieces from painted black fabric, added the edge outlines, and to blend it with the robes, I simply applied a layer of clear coat. And I think it honestly matches up phenomenally. I've also done this to the fabric piece on the torso. I was a little bit worried about how the arms would match with the fabric robes, but as it turns out, the standard black Lego arms blend right in, so that was a simple solution, and of course topped off with white hands, which brings me to the head. I've used the Voldemort head print that Lego produced for the Rise of Voldemort set, produced in 2019, and I really like the expression captured on the head. However, I don't really like the pale color. In the Goblet of Fire especially, Ralph Fiennes portrays the Dark Wizard with more of a flesh tone, maybe not as saturated as light nougat, but not exactly a blank white either. I think a color in between those would have been much more accurate. When I get around to the second version, I may play around with the idea of painting around the facial print, or maybe I'll keep it as it is, I haven't decided. Anyhow, the expression still is great. Like the other two figures in this video, I've also painted the design on his wand, which is supposed to look like a bone, and I've done my best to represent that by painting the various holes. I don't study the human body, or bones for that matter, so I don't know how to describe them better than that. It's basically just a bunch of small circles and ovals that I've painted all around the wand. Some of them stick out a little bit, but it isn't a huge deal to me. Plus, I've cut the end off of a Lego bone element and glued it to the wand, which really seals the deal. Armed with this wand, Lord Voldemort is prepared to return to his reign of old. I'm pretty happy with this figure, despite how simple he turned out. But what do you all think? Feel free to let me know. But that's about everything for the 3 minifigures from the Goblet of Fire, so we'll go ahead and finish up this review video. Alright, that'll be it. Thank you very much for checking out today's custom LEGO minifigure review video. If you have any questions, thoughts, or critiques, feel free to send them my way by writing a comment down below, and I'll try to get back to you. Also, if you're interested, be sure to follow my social media platforms, where I post updates, behind-the-scenes looks at future projects, and individual photos of all of my recent minifigures. Links are down below. As always, I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.